Hi guys, so I got this on Amazon. It was only about 16 bucks, but what was interesting about this one is it has temperature control. It's still a mains power might, but I think it's intended to replace something like these stations that are around 20 to 30 bucks depending on where you buy it from. These are Heiko clones, but this may be more convenient in some cases. Well, I'm going to try it out and see. So, the thing that interests me about this thing was, of course, its temperature control. And the second thing was the tips. I should have got a scissor. The tips are standard. Well, they look standard to the Heiko tips that these use, which means you can get a pack of these for like $5. So, first thing I want to check is indeed that. So, these are the tips it comes with. We got standard pointy one, a weld tip, a flat chisel, and another smaller weld tip. So, I would probably mostly use these. The pointed ones aren't really too much use, unless you're doing mod wires to things. But yeah, it comes with a reasonable amount of tips. And the first thing I want to check is if it's compatible with these Heiko clones. So, this sure looks like it. And, yeah, they're a little loose, but that's pretty normal for these cheap tips. So yeah, they look like standard tips that So, I haven't even powered this thing up yet. So, it comes with solder and the iron itself. And it's supposedly rated 60 watts. We'll see about that. Okay. So, I'll show you up close here. So it looks reasonably cheap, but still the interesting thing is this little adjustment dial here. The first thing I'm immediately noticing is I don't see any LED of any kind to tell you when it's actually reached these temperatures. But the temperatures go from 200 to 450. And this actually looks identical to the other. It's identical to the other ones. So, what I'm going to do is set it to what I usually do, which is about 350, which is in the center of the dial. You probably can't see that, but the camera will focus. Yeah, about 350. And we'll see what happens. I also have a kilowatt hooked up, and I'll try to read the wattage as it draws here. So, it's on. Oh, it jumped all the way to 80 watts, and now it's jumping down to about 50 watts or so. And I'm going to grab some actual tester solder and try to see how quick it heats up here. So, I'm just going to keep doing this because in theory I wouldn't know when it's heated up, but in this case the kilowatt in theory should jump down in power when it gets close. So right now we're looking at 30 watts. The tip's not hot enough yet, so oh, I'm going to stand corrected. There is an LED. So hopefully this will turn off when it's up to temp or some kind of other indication. Find out shortly. So yeah, that heated up pretty quick. It's not up to full temp yet, but that seems pretty reasonable actually. So it's still drawing about 28 watts from 110, but usually use my irons as soon as they're ready, so I actually try soldering a few things. One negative, this does not come with a stand. So I'm actually going to use one of my other stands here for this for now. But let's see, I've got these. These are a reasonable thermal mass, so I'll do these first. These are just standard fuse holders. So usually my other iron has no problem with these, so these should work pretty easily. So what I normally do with these guys is I'll put a bit of solder on here and just tack it like this. Sometimes I'll stick something under it like that, but as you can see, it comes off. So I'm just going to stick this component on here. Just solder that in. That flowed actually almost perfectly. I'm going to zoom the camera in here so you can see. So, we can do the other one. So, I'm going to put this here. I'll try to do this backwards, and I'm actually amazed, that's soldered perfectly. And I should just throw this stuff out, but I'm going to try the solder it came with. Okay, so let's try this stuff. That actually works too. I'm actually somewhat shocked this is good solder. These will be wicking up like it should. Alright, let's actually solder the back now that it's tacked, so you can see a full joint work. I'm going to solder this guy here, put the iron there, follow the solder in. That actually looks perfect. Solder that. So honestly, I was honestly expecting to throw this out, but this actually works. This solder is actually working like it's supposed to. I am shocked. So the kilowatt's still drawing 27 watts right now. Indicator is still red, so I'm not sure if it's cooling out or not. So I'm actually going to try to turn it down. See if the wattage does drop. So I just turned it down to about 300, and the wattage dropped to about 19. So it is actually maintaining. Seems to actually be functioning, so that's positive. So back up to 350, and I'm showing 24 watts again. So we'll solder one of these terminals in. These are usually reasonably difficult sometimes when you don't have enough heat in the pad. This is just an old board that I had to scrap, so I'm not too concerned with actually soldering the right components in. So, again, I'm using the solder the iron actually came with here. Works. Those joints look perfect to me. This is a really cheap one to moves, but it works. I was going to solder some resistors too, but it seems to have no problem with the big component, so I'm not really going to. I guess the next thing is just take it apart. Make sure it's actually reasonably safe. So, I'm going to grab a multimeter, switch it to continuity, as well show it. Okay, so the first thing I want to see is I want to make sure that there's no continuity between the shell and the plug. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. So I want to make sure that there's no continuity to this body here, because I was afraid this might be a capacitive dropper or some kind of simple circuit like that. So seems to be good. One thing I do not like about this, there is no grounded plug on this. It's just a simple 2-prong iron. In theory, that could have consequences of static buildup on your circuit. Here I'm probably okay because I got ESD mat, but could be an issue. So, without burning myself, let's actually take it apart. So, usually, these parts come off pretty easy. Yep. It actually looks fairly more discolored than usual, but it is what it is. And then you would normally put in a tip that works better, like this chisel tip. But we're not going to do that this time. Next thing that comes off, usually this little rubber piece folds down. And then you can pull this off. And it depends on the iron, but sometimes this is attached, sometimes it's not. So this is a little warm. I really shouldn't be doing this, but I'm going to. Pop, that's off. And usually you push the cord up through the bottom. But I'm not sure on this one because, yeah, it looks like the same construction, but it's got this knob here, which may come off. That might be it. So I'm actually going to try to pop this little knob off. Yeah, that was it. So I had it at 350, so I'll have to know that goes in like that. So now it just pushes out the bottom. Interesting. So looks like a fairly simple circuit. So the heating element actually looks a lot like the standard element too. So I'll show you that. So this is a standard replacement for one of these solder stations. You got 2 heating element wires and 2 thermocouples. This is a metal one. This is different. They're usually just ceramic, but it actually looks like it's very similar. Looks like it's a bit shorter for some reason. You put them side by side there, but that may not matter because you get a little play when you screw that thing down. Interesting. So it looks like a fairly simplistic circuit. Looks like it's just a single transistor that switches to AC on and off. And the LED seems to be in line with the heater, so if the heater is powered, it seems to be on. I'll look this up, but this looks like it's a 600 volt. It could even be a triac. Let's see. It is a PH 600 E BT 134. So let's see what Google says. It is a NXP triac. So this is probably more like your really simple irons that existed, like the Radio Shack ones, that are just triac dim controlled basically. Because I'm also Yeah, I'm not seeing any kind of temperature sense. If you just look, there's just two. There's just two wires, which tells me this is not temperature controlled. So this is really just a dimmer attached to the AC mains. Yeah. That's a little disappointing, I have to say. Because they imply that it was temperature controlled with this, and what it really is wattage controlled. So it's always going to be drawing the same amount of watts, no matter what you're doing. But the good thing is, it takes standard tips. That is the really good thing. So, this would not be a bad thing to get if you need something portable. Or cheap. Or available on Amazon easily. So yeah, anyways.